Hello, and we're back with our next English lesson. And today we're actually going to see the model text for our unit, our own retelling of the Beowulf saga, or beginning of it at least. We're also going to have a look at some of the key vocabulary that comes up. And at the very end, I'm going to set you a challenge. And the challenge is different in a way that you could do your own work in order to help you do this. You could do some research if you wanted to, or you can just have a go and see where you can get to. And we can talk about it in our next live session. So, hello, can I understand the key vocabulary for the model text? First off, we need to know a bit of context of where the story of Beowulf comes from. Because it's a story from another culture, it is written differently than some other stories are. It follows different trends and has different tricks within it. So where does it come from? So Beowulf is an old tale told in Anglo-Saxon Viking times, and it would originally have been told by poets or schools, which were the warrior poets. And it was in order to encourage and inspire people to do their best and to believe that they can overcome things as well. It was written in Old English, which is an interesting fact. So it was first written down in Old English, even though this tale had been told before then. And obviously it came from Scandinavia, Sweden and Denmark mainly. It was written down for the first time in Old English. And Old English is very different from English now. Here's a little sample of a bit of Old English. Now, I would have a go at trying to pronounce it, but as you can see, it's very different from our English now. Huet we dan gan dana in gan gadara. Does it mean anything to us? No. We might see some phrases or some parts of words which are similar to what we know now. An example of that might be stow. And stow means home. So in a town called Walthamstow, it's where somebody lives. So there are some things which cross over between the two, but it's not easy for us to understand the understanding of this. Over the course of time, this story, the story of Beowulf, has been retold and retold and retold. And with each retelling, it changes very slightly. The Viking and the Anglo-Saxon versions are marginally different. But the general overview of what happens is the same. So what do we think that why that might be the case? And the reason is that mainly it's because it was told verbally. This was a story which was recited almost. It's also called a saga. And what a saga is are multiple stories that are linked together. In the case of Beowulf, there are 3 stories that are part of the saga. You have Beowulf and Grendel, you have Beowulf and Grendel's mother, and then you have Beowulf and the dragon. And each of these sagas follow the life and journey of Beowulf through his life, leading until his ultimate encounter with the dragon. What we're going to focus on is the very first part of the saga. The saga, the part of Beowulf and Grendel. We're going to look at our model text and we're going to have a look at our own telling of this tale. And we're going to stop every now and then to have a look at some of our key vocabulary as it comes up and check we understand what the text is talking about. So here we go. Beowulf. Hear and listen well, my weary warriors, and I will tell you a tale that has been told for 1,000 years and more. In ages past, Denmark was a wild place. Gruesome monsters roamed the misty moors, and the king of the Danes, the warrior king, Hrothgar, defeated many a foe, collecting riches and followers alike. He was known as a generous and fair king. He ordered work on a great mead hall to house all his bannermen. Soon there it stood, Harut, made with the finest wood, decorated with silver and gold. Each night the king invited his bravest warriors to a lavish feast of roasted meat, jugs of frothing ale, and music for dancing feet. Inside, the men ate and drank until they fell asleep. But outside, something evil was rising. So there's a few things. Now, this is only the start. There's another bit coming up in a minute. But you can already tell that it must have come from a spoken story, because there is parts within it that rhyme with each other and do flow off the tongue. There's also other tricks that are happening within this story which are very linked to the way in which stories would have been told in Anglo-Saxon and Victorian time. And we're going to pick those apart as we go through, and part of the challenge is about that. But let's have a look at some of those key vocabulary words. The first one we're going to look at is gruesome. So gruesome, what does it mean? Well, gruesome just is something that causes repulsion or horror, something that is so hideous, or something that causes people to recoil in terror. It's a good descriptive word, and actually the stem to this word comes from Scandinavia. So we can tell that's come from there, and the choice, the using this word, helps to link this story back to its original origin. Another word we're going to look at is lavish. And what lavish means is sumptuously rich, elaborate, or luxurious. In this case, it is pertaining to a feast. So what we're trying to say, or trying to give the idea of, is that this feast that they're having is luxurious, huge, elaborate, sumptuously rich. It's probably one of the greatest feasts that there would have been. It's a nice word to use because it paints a nice picture in your head. The next word is the word frothing. And already when you think of this word, you kind of get an idea of what it is just by the sound of the word. What frothing means is an overflowing of mass of small bubbles. Think about when you pour a fizzy drink into a cup and all those bubbles expand up. That's frothing. So our frothing ale here, jugs of frothing ale, means that the bubbles are pouring out the top of this jug. And that helps, so you can then imagine all these burly warriors sitting around with their mugs of frothing ale. On to our next section of the story. So let's finish the last sentence. Inside, the men ate and drank until they fell asleep, but outside, something evil was rising. Across the moor, a foul monster crawled from its swamp lair. An almost formless creature of nightmares slunk from its lair, howling in rage as its slumber had been disturbed by the revel makers. Silently, the god-cursed brute crept into Harut. Waiting till the warrior king had left his hall in the dead of night, Grendel attacked like a sudden storm, leaving the hall in disarray. No bodies remained, only the life essence of their passing. Grendel ruled the night, and the great Harut stood empty for 12 winters. News of this dreadful tragedy spread far and wide to all the princes of different lands, but only one of them, the greatest and bravest, Beowulf, decided this night terror must be stopped. Aboard a seaworthy ship, he sailed the whale road to Denmark with 14 hand-picked warriors. When Beowulf arrived, sudden hope warmed the old king's heart. Together they feasted until night fell. So let's have another look. A few more words that we can pick out here. There's also a few more interesting phrases that maybe you can have a look at later and see if you can work out what they might mean. First off, we have the word formless. And what formless means is without clear or definite shape or structure. So it's something you can almost not describe because it doesn't keep just one shape. It seems to be moving all the time or is undefined. It adds that air when we think back to when we were thinking about our story to do with Mowgli. It hints at the unknown, something that we can't describe or something we don't know. And it's that seed of the unknown which is going to cause the readers or the listeners to hear or fear whatever that might be, an almost formless creature of nightmares. Have they described what the beast looks like? Not really. They've left that to the imagination of the reader or the listener. And that is a nice trick, we know, because it allows the reader to decide what sort of beast would be worst for them. Our next word is disarray. What disarray means is in a state of disorganization or untidiness. And you can imagine if somebody's come in and ruined a room, thrown everything around and broken everything, nothing is where it should be, and everything is all over the place and in pieces. This is what disarray means, this state of disorganization or untidiness. The next one is tragedy. Hopefully you might know what this word means, as it means an event causing great suffering, such as a serious accident, crime, or natural catastrophe. And to be honest, maybe we're living through a tragedy now with coronavirus, meaning that we can't go to school and do this in school. It's something that has an effect on those around them, causes them to feel like they're under great suffering. A tragedy is something that is put upon people and causes them that. So let's read the last sentence again to lead us into the next part. When Beowulf arrived, sudden hope warmed the old king's heart. Together they feasted until night fell. As darkness swallowed light, the swamp bubbled and Grendel rose. Grisly, grim, and gruesome, no word could describe this brute. Beowulf crouched in the shadows, his steely eyes fixed on the murdering monster. Without a weapon, Beowulf pounced, grasping the monster's arm. Grendel wreathed and thrashed, but Beowulf would not let go. Grendel swiped and slashed, but Beowulf would not let go. The hall shuddered and benches shattered, but still Beowulf refused to let go. He tugged the monster's arm and tore it from its body. Roaring in pain, the monster smashed through the walls and charged into the night, staggering across the moor. Beowulf stood holding the monster's arm. He knew there was no way the beast would survive such a mortal wound. Its life ebbing away drop by drop. Grendel was defeated. A few more words that we can go through here. We've got grisly, and this obviously links to the word we looked at before, which was gruesome. What grisly means is causing horror or disgust. So it's very similar to the word gruesome. It doesn't give us detail about what Grendel may have looked like. As it says, no word could describe this beast. But it does give us an idea that whatever he does look like is horrific and causes people disgust. Next, we're going to look at the word wreathed. And what this is when you make twisting and squirming motions. And you can imagine if somebody had grabbed your arm, all those motions you're trying to do, get the person off, sudden movements forwards and backwards in all sorts of directions, trying to throw this person that's got a massive hold on your arm. That's what we mean by wreath. Next, the word is ebbing. And this can be used to describe two different things. We could use it to describe water ebbing away, In this case, his life ebbing away, but it means to gradually decrease. So as it ebbs away, you think about the tide of the sea as it's come all the way in and slowly ebbs away. It gradually decreases back across the sand. In this case, Grendel's life is slowly ebbing away, slowly decreasing into nothingness. And what you're trying to do is give the reader the idea that it is slow and painful, drop by drop. And to finish our story, Grendel was defeated. By the next morning, the news of the great fight at Harut had spread throughout the land, so that everyone should know that the tyrant was truly dead, and their grief finally at an end. The hero hung high in the gables of Harut, where all could see that whole torn off limb, gruesome witness to the monster's violent end. Quite a picture to paint, but obviously in this telling and the way these stories were told, they didn't shy away from being graphic in what they were saying. So is there any words we need in here? And just one word that we've kind of used before to describe Miss Trunchbull. We said she was tyrannical, which means that she was a tyrant, a person exercising power or control in a cruel, unreasonable way. And in this case, this particular tyrant was Grendel, and he was exercising power to destroy any revelry that was happening at Harut. And because of that, he was known as a tyrant. Now, I want you to look back through, and you can read it again yourself. See if there are any other words that you want us to go through in our next live session. See if there's any other ones that you yourself might be able to look up. And there's one other challenge that I'm going to set for you. In a lot of the poems and stories written around this time, they used what were called kennings. And this is a trick, and a kenning is a descriptive phrase. So about a third of the words in the original Beowulf were known as kennings. And what they are is a metaphorical description. It's not a true description, but it does describe what it is without necessarily saying it. And normally they come as compound words, two words linked together. Words that are combined to create an imaginative alternative. So what I want you to do, I want you to go back through the model text, just have a flick around and see if you can find any kennings in our model text. Think if you can think what they might mean. What might those kennings mean to us? Here's an example. So an example might be wave floater. You think about something floating on the waves. So this can be used to describe, or as another word for ship, as a ship floats on the top of waves as it travels across on its journey. And this is how kennings are used. So your task, your challenge, have a look through our model text, see if you can find any kennings, and then I want you to think about what they might mean. What might they be trying to describe? I hope you enjoyed our model text, and we'll pull it apart and have a look at it in more detail in other lessons too. See you in the next lesson. Goodbye.